Hello YouTube, welcome to Crochet with the Mother of Boys. I'm Michelle, the Mother of Boys. Today we are going to do the first of the Stitch of the Month series. Today we're going to start off with the absolute basics and work our way through to more advanced, harder stitches, but I thought, like anything in life, you have to know the basics before you can do the more advanced. So today we are going to do the single crochet. As simple as that. Now for me, each time I'm going to be making angel baby blankets for the hospital. So I'm only going to need to be doing about a 12 by 12 up to 24 by 24, but I'm personally going to be doing about a 12 by 12, 14 by 14 size square. You can make this one with the single crochet. You can make it as long or as short as you want. No limitations on it. Today we are using the Bernat Softy Baby. It is a 3-weight. It is 100% acrylic, 5 ounces, 140 grams, approximately 362 yards or 331 meters. And they do call for a 4mm crochet hook. I tend to crochet tighter, so I like to go a little bit larger than what they say. I, for the most part, would go about a half a size up from what they say. But today I'm actually going to use my 5.5 millimeter or eye hook. I'm just mostly because I want to make sure they're nice and loose enough that you guys can all see what I'm doing. But feel free to use whatever hook works for you. Now something I noticed on here which I thought was really cool and I want to try with you guys. I will only get one shot, so hopefully it works out. But they're talking about, you know, from the center, how to start your ball. I don't know if you can see here. So they're basically saying take the label off, squish it down with your hand, reach the middle, and grab the middle and grab the yarn to start. So I'm gonna try that. Normally I would just go in here like this and just grab the guts out and quite often get yarn barf. But let's see. Oh yeah, sorry. This is also in color pale blue. I'm gonna see if this works. So, okay. So we have that. And then we go squish. Let me find my center. See if it works. Oh. Wah wah. Still got the yarn barf. Oh well, it was worth a try. And now I have this really weird ball of yarn. Yeah, I don't know if I like that. Okay, let's put this back to where it's supposed to be. That's better. That's better. Okay. I will have to take my label back on because I like to keep my labels. So yeah, don't do that. I didn't enjoy that. I don't recommend doing that. It was a good try. It was something fun, but it was not for me, to say the least. But tell me below, how do you guys like to start your yarn? Do you center pull? Do you like to do it from the outside? Do you rewind your own ball? What do you like to do? Let me know below. Very curious. For the longest time, I didn't know about the center pull. Honestly, I'm quite self-taught when it comes to crochet, or I was for a very long time. I had the very basics told to me by a teacher. Get your yarn and here's how to do the stitch. I really was taught nothing about yarn itself, and that's one thing I've had to learn. I guess that's really where the self-learning comes from, is about yarn, is about what types of yarn, why that yarn, why not this yarn, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, for the longest time, I would take the label off and then I would find the outside here and I would go, and I hated how it was bouncing around, jumping around, and I'm like, I don't understand, this is so frustrating. And I'm pretty sure it was my best friend when her mom was teaching her crochet stitches, and then she'd come and teach me, and she was the one who taught me about the center pull. And I'm like, that's a thing? I hate that I end up with this at the beginning. It just makes such a mess. Like, if there's some days that, you know, I'm not going to get even this much of a done in my project, and then it's like, oh, well, that sucks. Like, I have now this giant bulge of yarn and that. So anyways, enough complaining. All right. So So I have my hook. And I will say, please excuse my nails. They are a hot mess. I had a client last night, and she's got bright red hair, which I love, but they tend to stain your hands and your nails. And then you can see like, oh, look, my nail polish is coming off. That's awesome. Anyways, so excuse the nails. I do apologize. I didn't realize that until I really got underneath the lights here. Anyways, so, okay, let's start from the beginning here. This is yarn. No, I'm just kidding. So I do, for my slip stitch, I leave myself a little tail because you're going to need that to weave in to secure it. I will wrap it around my finger. I'll take my finger out. You have a little loop, right? Or cross. It's kind of like an awareness ribbon, I guess you're making. Then I grab the join and I fold it on top. Then I typically will grab with my nails, but some people will use their hook, whatever makes you happy. Grab it, then I grab the two tails and I pull, and that's how I make my slip stitch. I will preface that anything I teach you is not necessarily 100% the right way of doing it, because everyone has their own way of doing things. This is just the way I do things. And that is okay, because we would be a very boring world if everyone did things exactly the same way. We would never have some of these really cool stitches that people have invented. So this is the way I'm teaching you, the way I do things, and hopefully it works for you. So we have our slip stitch. Now we need to chain. For my slip stitch, I leave myself a little tail because you're going to need that to weave in to secure it. I will wrap it around my finger. I'll take my finger out. You have a little loop, right? Or cross. It's kind of like an awareness ribbon, I guess you're making. Then I grab the join. So make sure I'm in frame here. And I fold it on top. Then I typically will grab with my nails, but some people will use their hook, whatever makes you happy. Grab it, then I grab the two tails and I pull, and that's how I make my slip stitch. So we have our slip stitch on here. Now we're going to yarn over. Now there's a couple of ways of doing it, in my opinion, because I think it makes the same look, but it's my dyslexic brain, it's whatever's gonna do it that day is what I do. So for me, sometimes honestly, I just go around, I grab and I pull through, and that's how I make my chain. But I think most people wrap back around and pull through. Now if you look, it makes the same shape. So whatever works in your head, you do. So I'll show you two options. I think majority of the world wrap around and you grab and you pull through. Me, I just grab and pull through. Again, makes the same shape. So whatever you're gonna do, you do whatever makes you happy there. So anyways, like I said, chain until you have the length that you want. I'm looking for about a 12-inch by 12-inch square for these angel baby blankets. So depending on what you're making, depends on how many you want. So you go ahead and do the rest of your chains, and I will see you back. So I have my amount of chains that I would like. So I just did 60. So honestly, I don't know, that's around the 10 to 12 mark, I guess. I'm not doing anything that's an exact measurement, but it's about, the size I would like. It will grow a pinch, so it's about the size I would like for these angel blankets. So anyways, now with a single crochet, you only need to add on one more stitch than you think you'll need. If the pattern calls for 60, add 61. because that is going to be your first single crochet. You can see that there's these little kind of V's. You want to get under that top loop on each V. That's where you're going to put your stitch. The very first row is always going to be the hardest row to see, to hold on to. I find that if my hand's going to cramp, it's going to be in the first couple rows because it's hard to hang on to. So just do your best. But if you know your count, then you'll know if you've messed up. So I have 61 stitches on here. So by the end of it, I should have put 60 single crochets through the chain. So you have your loop that you're always going to have on your hook. And with the single crochet, you just immediately go into and under that first loop of that V. Anyway, so you should be under that V, under that first loop. That's when you yarn over. Like I said, for me, I do it probably different than anyone else. So either way you do it, this way or this way, whatever works for you, grab your yarn and pull through that first loop. You're still gonna have 2 loops. Yarn over again and pull through those 2 loops. You've just made, congratulations, you've just made your very first single crochet. Where's the next stitch to go into? And it's easy to see. This one's kind of all stretched out. Well, that's because you have all those stitches in there you've moved around. So that's the one we just went into. So put that away, and it's going to be the one right next to it. So again, go in and under, yarn over, pull through. You're going to have 2 loops, yarn over, pull through. You've just made your second single crochet. So really, you're going to just do that the whole way through. But again, I'll show you a few more. So you're going to go find the next chain, the next stitch to go in. Go in, yarn over, pull that yarn through. You have 2 stitches, so the one that was made from your last single crochet, the one that you just made now. Yarn over and pull through both of those stitches. And you just made your 3rd single crochet. It's going to be much easier the next round because it's just so much more defined. Let's do this together again. So find your next chain, go under. Said this first row is always the hardest to get things going. But you go under that loop, yarn over, pull through, pull up. You have 2 loops, grab yarn over, pull that yarn through both of those loops, put through the next stitch, pull the yarn through, pull the yarn through. So depending if you're like me, having all the technical terms sometimes, I mean, you need to know them, don't get me wrong, but when I'm doing it, it's like, okay, well, you know, yarning over, what does that mean? It means grabbing the yarn. You know, when I figure out that sort of stuff, and then in my own head when I'm doing it, I get my own commentary and I just simplify it for myself. So in my mind, it is through the loop, grab, pull, grab, and pull. That's what I tell myself. But you can see here, and those V's are much more defined on the next row. So it'll be so much easier to find your stitches from here on out. It's just, yeah, the chain is always so hard to get done. Let's do 2 more. And then I will leave you and I will meet you then at the end of the row and we will go from there together. So find the top of the next stitch. And again, if you need to, use your nail. Don't be afraid. It helps push it through. grab your yarn, pull through. You have 2 stitches, grab your yarn, pull through both those stitches. And last one here, find your stitch, pull through. 2 stitches, pull through. Alright, so this is how it's looking after the first, how many was that? 7 stitches. So work your way through until you get to the very, very end, very last stitch, and then I will meet you guys here at the end. Okay, so we've gotten to the end of our very first row. It's going to be, you know, it'll curl up a little bit. It's just the reality of it, but it'll straighten out as you get your stitches built up. So we're at our very last stitch here. So you're going to go in, or pull, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. So now when you're at the end of your row, you know, now what we need to do is to go up and over, right? So depending on what stitch you're doing, depends on how many stitches you need to chain up before you turn your work. With single crochet, you only need to do 1 chain, and then you can turn your work. Like I said, it gets easier the second row on because you can see your stitches. All right, so you want to go underneath each V, right? So here's a V here, here's a V here, here's a V here. You want to go under each V. So if you can look, hopefully the yarn allows you to see here. There's also these little spots here that end up correlating with where each stitch is. So you can look for either one of those indicators and it'll let you know where to go. Because I just remember at the very beginning being like, where's my stitch? I don't understand. But if you realize, if you can look and find those V's, that will make a world of difference in knowing where your stitches are. So like I said, we chained 1, right? We're on the end of the row. We chained 1, we turned our work, and then you're going to go into the very first, you're going to go underneath that very first V, right? So underneath that very first V, you're going to yarn over, pull through, you'll have your 2 stitches, yarn over and pull through, and you've made another stitch. So again, you're going to find your stitch, your next stitch, your next V, and you're going to go under that V. You're going to grab, pull up, you got 2 loops, grab and pull through. You've made your second stitch. So again, find your next V. You want to go underneath that V, yarn over, pull. You have 2, pull through, and so on. So this is it. This is all you need to know about how to do a single crochet. If I can give any word of advice, it is to make sure that you are not pulling and being too tight with your stitches, because that is what's going to make it so hard and so impossible to do your work, and then everything just gets too tight and too stiff. It doesn't feel soft anymore. So when you go through and you're doing your stitch, be careful, you know, not to pull on here too tight, because that's going to cause your next stitch to be tighter. So just let it, you know, use your hook. This part of your hook is what is the size of the stitch, right? So I will pull it till it's, you know, snug on there, but I'm not going to pull it till, you know, I can't make it, you know, any tighter. That was my mistakes I made at the beginning, was I was pulling way too tight and it would just be so stiff. It would be like, I mean, this is nice and flexible still. it would just be so stiff. It's like cardboard. Like, it was horrible. So that's one thing that, you know, I think a lot of people don't like about single crochet is that it's so easy to get your tension out of control and to be so tight and to, you know, it's not soft and it's like a board. But I mean, other than that, single crochet is great for many things. Like you would have seen in my last video there, I was showing my tank top that I'm making, and I don't want it to be see-through. One of the things that I don't like from so many of the tank tops that I see, tutorials I see, is that you can see your bra through it, and I don't want that. So the solution is to do a tighter stitch, and that's single crochet. You have the smallest amount of space in between with the stitch, and it doesn't matter what yarn and what needle you're using, it will always be your tightest stitch. So, you know, you got to think of what you need and then go from there and decide what stitch you're going to do. You know, single crochet, yes, I don't use it on a regular basis. It does take a lot longer to do because you're only doing these tiny little short stitches where, you know, when I get into the next stitches and you can see how they can be so much taller and your project just seems to grow so much quicker. We all kind of sometimes just want to get through that project, right? Yeah, no, single crochet has its place, but I'm very much a firm believer and you need to learn the basics before you can do the advanced things, and single crochet is a basic. It is very basic of how to do a stitch. If you understand how to do a single crochet, you'll understand how to do, you know, a double crochet and a half double crochet and a treble crochet and all the other ones around. So this is single crochet. Continue on with your row. I'll meet you at the end, and then we'll do a couple more turns and go from there. Okay, so we're at the end of our second row. Now this can be a little bit tricky as to where you put your stitch. You still have your V, but then there's this little loop here. So you just need to make sure you get through and underneath those two loops there that make your V, underneath your V. Pull through, and you have your stitch. And again, then we need to chain one to grow the height of our next row. Oh goodness, I should be careful not to knock my arm. Sorry, hit the tripod. And then we turn our work. Okay, so this is now 2 rows of, I guess, your chain row, and then 2 rows of your single crochet. So I'll do a few more. Show you again. So you find your V, your first V, go underneath, pull up, pull over. Again, find your V, go underneath it, yarn over, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through. And it's nice sometimes to do the same stitch over and over. Not to have a complicated pattern with all these, you know, crazy stitches, because these are those ones that, you know, you don't have to worry about counting. You just go. It's great to put on a show. In all honesty, I have Blossom on in between these recording clips or when I'm not talking, and just enjoying. And yeah, I can just listen to the show and focus on the show and not necessarily have to pay all that much attention to what I'm doing. Yeah, so once you get these, you know, stitches, master these simple ones, then it's a no-brainer. And these are the ones that on those days when your brain is just, you know, feeling melty from a busy day, but you just want to desperately sit down and do your craft, you know, these are those kind of projects to have, these just simple stitches. So Anyways, I will continue on. You continue on with your row, and I will see you at the end. Okay, so we're back at the end of our next row, and again we want to look for that our V. Make sure you go underneath your V, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and then you're going to want to chain 1. So that helps you grow the height of your next row. Turn over, and then we're going to find our first V's. Go underneath your V, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and then continue on. And do that over and over and over and over until you have the height of whatever your project is. I always recommend doing something that's, you know, big enough that you get the concept. Because once you've done, you know, this is going to be about a 12 by 12, maybe I think it's going to be a little bigger than 12 by 12, but it's about a 12 by 12 square is what I'm doing. But I mean, that's a number of rows, and by the time I've done, you know, 12 inches high, I mean, it's in there, it's in my brain now. I've learned that stitch, and hopefully we'll never forget it, right? So that's the way I did it. Although I wasn't smart enough to think about, oh, make tiny little squares. You know, I went ahead and I did giant Afghans. So it was really in there by the time I was done every Afghan. Yeah, so don't go as intensely as I did maybe when you're just learning. Don't do giant Afghan, but you know, a baby blanket, even if you want to do a bigger project. You know, the like lapgans, you know, the blankets that people donate to retirement homes for people in wheelchairs. You know, there's a lot of great charities out there that would be grateful to take your projects and put them to good use. So just continue on, get to the height that you want, and I will see you at the end of your project, and I will show you how to bind off. Okay, here we are at the end of our very last row, or for me, my last row. Obviously you can make it whatever size you want. I am going to do this. All right, now it's time to bind off. So for me, I like to cut my yarn to whatever length I feel I'm going to need to stitch in, maybe plus a little bit, and then I just pull through, and that knots off my yarn for me. So all right, so then this is type of needle. I mean, I have a few different kinds, but this is kind of my favorite one right now. I don't know if there's a brand on here. Clover. I've had this for a long time. I remember it was like a multi-pack, and I've broken all the other ones except for this one. But I like this one because it's the bigger head, so it fits really any size yarn I need. But for me, when I do my weaving in, I find that depending on the yarn, it can be hard to get through the head of the needle. So I tend to kind of roll it in my fingers to get it smaller, and then I'll put it through. So if you don't have a needle, it's got a nice big head like I do. So can you see that blue on blue? Then that might be a good little tip and trick for you as well. Anyways, So for me, I mean, everyone does their things differently. This is just what works for me. If you have a better way of doing it, feel free. But this is just what I do. I like to go in and out of those top stitches. Depends on what the project is, depends on how I'm gonna weave in my ends. But for this one, because it's such a tight stitch and there's not really a good side or a bad side because it's a blanket, I go through and I just weave in and out of the top here. So I went in. Now on the other side, I'm gonna go back. So then I go through that way, and then I'll do, 4 or 5, go back and forth. And then to kind of seal it in more, I'll start going back through those stitches yet again. And you can do it a few times. I always say that if I have the yarn here anyways, then use it up. But also I feel like it just makes it a little more secure. And I'll go back to the beginning. That should be the end of my yarn. Again, if you have your own way of doing it that works for you, then power to you. This is just what works for me. So everyone to each his own. There you go. And then I like to pull it, stretch it a little bit before I snip it. And there we go. All right, so this is my single crochet angel blanket. I guess I should weave in this end too. Again, I just do it the same way on both ends. All right. Okay. So that is my single crochet angel blanket. Now, if you really, really want to, you can go ahead and you can block your squares or your blankets. I'll be honest with you, I've never blocked a blanket because the reality is no one's ever lined them out perfectly flat. I personally don't see the need, but to be honest with you, I also don't have the room to be laying out these blocks and pinning my work to it. So to me, good enough. It's handmade. This is how to do the single crochet, and I hope that you had a lot of fun with it. I hope that you learned something. And they say like just repetitiveness, it gets in your brain then, right? So by doing one stitch for the whole blanket, you've done it over and over and over and over, and hopefully you will never forget it. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the description box below. But also tell me, what did you make with your single crochet project? I would love to know. But yeah, until next time, happy crocheting!